So, after our very strong start this morning, we're going to now move into a great round table, looking at and listening to some amazing stories concerning disruptive robotic solutions and where we can go. And this is going to be moderated by the CEO of Theraclion, David Caumartin. Over to you, David, and your panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here today with us, and thank you for listening to us remotely. As you always know, mankind always had the temptation to replace physician by robotics. And here today, to illustrate the different phases of development of such disruptive technology, we have picked 4 amazing talents with 4 different origins from Europe to US, men, women, doctors, linguists, very diverse talent to share with you their experience on the different challenges and different phases of development of disruptive technology at the heart of robotic design. So we're going to have a short presentation of each of our roundtables, and we're going to start by my right neighbor, Joana.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Hi, I'm Joana Cartocci. I am co-founder and COO, Chief Operating Officer at Robeauté. Interesting. All right. I have a very atypical background for this very technical field. As David was saying, I'm the linguist of the group. I started off my career as an interpreter in international organizations as a simultaneous interpreter with 6 different languages, and then gradually spanned over into the coordination of intricate transdisciplinary projects allying tech and art and citizen movement, politics and well-being. And I met Bertrand Duplat, who is the founder, the CEO of Roboauté, back in 2016. And in a bistro, as one does in Paris, we discussed this incredible idea, this very ambitious idea of creating a micro-robot for the brain. And he invited me to found Roboauté with him. And so today, Roboauté develops a tiny, submillimetric micro-robot to deliver innovative local solutions in hard-to-reach areas of the body. And initially conceived for the brain, the microrobot will be able to navigate in 3D in other intricate, complex organs to deliver solutions, drug molecules, tools such as biopsy tools and measuring tools for data, live data collection on site. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving from one atypical background, let's go to another founder. Philippe, as an interventional radiologist, why don't you share with the audience a bit of your experience and how you did create your company?
Thank you. Happy to join physically, and I'm really happy. So my name is Philippe Bencteux. I'm the president and founder of Robocath. Robocath develops intuitive vascular robotics solution. Robotic solution dedicated to catheterism to treat vascular diseases such as coronary, peripheral, or neurovascular diseases. Our first robotic solution, R1, is CE marked since 2 years. We have a dozen of robots installed in the world on 3 continents. We have treated 120 patients. Our robotic solutions are based on the bionic technology. Very smart technology, very intuitive, very easy to use, and I think it's very important for the adoption of a robotic solution. And otherwise, we are a French-based company. We are based in Rouen, in Normandy, and we have 70 collaborators. And well, in a few words, Robocath.
Thank you for coming over this morning. Also traveling this morning is Stéphane, coming from Grenoble. Stéphane, why don't you share your experience as an engineer?
Exactly. My background is engineer in telecom, and I am a serial entrepreneur in the field of surgical robotics. So I was basically born in surgical robotics in 1986, and I have 4 lives. My first one was researcher, many world premiere in Grenoble, on surgical robotics. Second, my first startup company, Praxim, that was basically my MBA. I did all the mistakes, but I also learned a lot. My third life, I created many startups that were successful, acquired by different companies like Smith & Nephew, J&J, Exactech. And my fourth life, which is probably the reason I'm here today, is I'm the president and CEO of eCential Robotics, which is a company based in Grenoble. We developed a platform, a robotic platforms that integrate an imaging robot for 2D and 3D imaging, a navigation system, and a robotics for surgery. And this platform helps to build apps. So it's really like the iPhone. And we are now developing many apps, mainly for the spine surgery today, but for all the neuromusculoskeletal surgery domains in the future. So recently, we obtained a financing plan of 100 million euros. We are now 130 people, all based in Grenoble, and starting soon in the US.
Merci Stéphane. So moving from France to the US, we have the chance today to have Jeff. Jeff is coming from San Francisco. He's actually one of the very first employees of Auris Medical, and talking about robotic would have been difficult not to have one of the key star of robotic value creation today with us. So thank you, Jeff.
Great, thanks for having me. I'm Jeff Alvarez. I'm a med tech startup builder. I've been building med tech startups for about 15 years with a focus in surgical robotics, as David mentioned. Also an engineer by training. I am the COO of Moon Surgical, which was founded here in Paris by a brilliant surgeon, Brice Gayet. It is a platform that we're not talking much about right now, but is focused on soft tissue robotics and enables incredible capability for the surgeon by keeping them at the bedside and delivering a highly versatile, highly adaptable system that can configure itself to meet the needs of the OR and the team and the surgeon. And very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So my first question actually to you, going back to you, Joana, is how do you manage the technology development and the target of market value creation? How does that work with your sophisticated implantable robotic system?
That's a very good question, very complex. I don't know how much time we have to answer it, but I'll try to be brief. When you're creating a technology, a disruptive technology that has a large platform potential, that means that it can be adapted to different applications by adding multiple extensions that adapt it to drug delivery or to microbiopsy or to data collection, as I was saying earlier. The choice of the first application is of key strategic value. And your first application is the one that you are going to begin your relationship with the regulatory authorities with. It's going to determine the narrative of your company, the narrative of your product for a very long time. So it's a choice that must be made wholeheartedly and taking quite a few parameters into account. One of them would be, is it feasible? Can you do what you're setting out to do with the technology that you're developing, or is that for a different life in a different company? Another one could be, does it add value to the current gold standard? Is it going to be used? What do the medical advisors, what does the medical community have to say? Will they adopt the solution? Another one could be, what is the regulatory pathway? Is it a very moonshot project? Are you aiming for a disruptive technology in a very complex organ for a very novel application? In that case, the regulatory authorities might see quite a bit of risk and the process could take long and cost a lot of money, or is it a straight shot? Or again, will you de-risk that technology through different applications, through various applications? And then one of the last ones we could say, but there are many more, could be, what is the market? How many people will you reach? Does it create value? Is the value you create, does it justify your R&D expenses, your development time, and the investment your shareholders have put into the company? So this is an essential question, and I think the question was given to me at this stage because that's the phase Robeauté is in today. And we hope that we'll be able to give you news soon of our first application. Thank you.
Thank you, Joana. You spoke about financing, so I've actually, a few things to share, but financing a sophisticated CapEx investment-heavy business is pretty complicated. So maybe, Philippe, you want to give a shot on how did you succeed to finance your company?
I have a sort of long experience in the financing of Robocath, and it's quite difficult to raise money. I think the risk of robotics today is, I would say a few years ago, it was to be a pioneer, and pioneering the field is not so easy because for VC it's an unknown field. And of course, there was intuitive surgical pioneering, but it was quite difficult. Second, it is quite capital intensive. We tick a box, which is a wrong box, which is the box of capital equipment, and so it's very capital intensive. And so at the end, for sure, the return on investment, it's not so easy for VC to understand. But I think the positive message is when it's capital intensive, you create barriers to the entry. And of course, it's long, capital intensive. It's also many patents at the end. And this is why strategic are able also to pay the difference. The risk here, I think we are here. In our case, for Robocath, what we met as a problem is we had only one competitor, and this competitor had some difficulties to sell their robots. They don't sell many robots at that time. And so, of course, as a VC, and I can't blame, you are watching the competition when you open a file, and you are watching the market, and you see that there is one competitor. This competitor doesn't sell many robots, so it looks like there is no market. At the end, the market is huge, and what has allowed us to change really of scale was when we obtained the CE mark first, but second, when our competitor was acquired by a major, which is Siemens, for 1.1 billion. And it changed the face of the world for Robocath. I mean, we had many letters of interest at that time, and it was really a good fortune for us at that time. We had 3 letters of interest from 3 corporates, and I think corporates really understand how strategic it is for the future of the operating room and the cath labs and so on. So they were, I think, more sensitive to the technology. Here we are.
Merci, Philippe. So, Stéphane, you had 4 different lives. You said you made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure you didn't do that many. Could you share a bit of the audience, what are the 4 or 3 tricks to do or to avoid?
Yeah, sure. So you want me to give you some advice, right? Okay.
No, not to me, to the audience.
No. My first advice is do not follow my advice. So maybe we should stop there. No, but seriously, I'm going to give you a secret. The key to be successful in surgical robotics is to be in surgical robotics. Is there any startup which failed in this field? Are you aware of one? I'm not. This is amazing. Surgical robotics is here to stay. Why? Because it changes everything. Because it's like everything, it's a fundamental transformation of surgery. Surgery does not escape to the transformation towards digital. And digital surgery means robotics. So it's really fundamental. It's huge. It's only the beginning. All the big boats want to go in surgical robotics. All of them. So we are just scratching the surface. So to be successful, this is the key point. Just saying robot, and you bring the attention. I faced this issue for 20 years. I was in surgical navigation. When you say surgical navigation, yeah, it's interesting. What is it? And so on and so on. Augmented reality, yeah, interesting, and so on. You say robot, it's a magic word. It's fantastic. So this is really a big secret. Then, of course, you have to choose. You have two ways being successful, you know. One way is a small, early-stage startup. The second way is, of course, a scale-up. So far, I did only the first ones, and I'm now working on the second one. So you have to choose, if you can choose. So on the first one, I really think the key point is to focus, like you said, Philippe, on the strategics. If you are a small company, listen to the strategics. We always say that, but we have to do it very, very carefully. That's what I did, and many of them told me, yeah, that's really important. We could really feel that you were listening to us. So it's not solving usually we will tell you solve unmet clinical needs. I would say solve strategic unmet needs. Listen to them. Try to find what they want, what they would like, where they go. Talk to them. And, okay, sometimes you say, I have no clues. I don't know them. Okay, fine. Then go to the key opinion leaders. Talk to their trustees. This is easy to identify. And they will help you to find what they want. So that's really, I think, the key point. Of course, if we go to scale up, it is another story. Maybe we talk later.
Merci beaucoup. So Jeff, as one of the very first employees of Auris, not looking at Mood Surgical, but Auris, then how would you advise the different startup here listening to us on the commercial, how do you develop commercial launch future plan when you think about your technology development?
That's a great question, Dave. It actually starts very early in the product development life cycle. And what I mean by that is you could have the best sales team in the world. You could have brilliant marketers crafting campaigns. But if you don't have the right tech, if it's not sticky enough, if it's not creating the right value, you'll have a ton of challenge when you get into your commercial stage. So you need to think about product market fit very early in your development. And so how do you do this? A technique that we've often used is looking for or creating a steady cadence of technology challenges and integration points. And these are usually things like cadaver labs or animal labs or physician demos. Staging these things once a month, for instance. That forces your teams to come together, to bring their latest technology, and to stress test them, to see what assumptions we're getting right, what assumptions we're getting wrong. And you're constantly refining to figure out, have we identified all the points of friction? Have we delivered the right user experience? Have we created the right value for this surgical indication? A great example of this is at Auris. We very early on needed to focus on how do we develop the right input device. This is the component of the robotic system that the surgeon interacted with. Very important because it defines that user experience. And we went through a number of iterations. Our first was a very large lunchbox size box that the surgeon had to sit down and use. It looked like an Atari controller. And it was horrible. You watched the surgeon just struggle to use it. Which joystick does what, which button does what. And so we iterated. The next one was slightly smaller, still surgeon sitting down, still lots of buttons. It was a distraction. And then one day I was playing Xbox that night with my family at home, my boys, and had this Xbox controller in my hand, and I said, I think this is it. We, went to the whiteboard, scribbled out what all the controls needed to be, and that was it. From that point on, any surgeon that sat down with our system, it was incredibly easy. It wasn't a distraction. It was a unique experience that we gave to them. And to this day, Auris, its platform, really prides itself on that component of its system. And so thinking through and challenging yourself to figure out where do we need to keep evolving our system so that it's delivering that right value, that right user experience is incredibly important.
Thank you. So I guess we have to integrate children in our design team, right? Let's going back into the body as the movie L'Aventure Intérieure. You know, Joana, however, you and your founder had the idea to go inside the brain. You know, is it like another fantasy of robotic guys or what?
We like a challenge. Actually, of course, the idea is at the core of everything, is at the origin of everything. And what I was very impressed with and what I loved was this original vision, this original idea that Bertrand had, which was to create a micro-robot that could garden the brain, that could support its growth, that could mend it, that could prune it. And as soon as we started talking to the scientific and medical community, we saw that this idea generated great enthusiasm and enormous interest. And not only in those communities, but also with a possible team. Because of course an idea, it can die if it can't rally the right people, the right team to make it happen. So at the core there is an idea, but really at the heart of any disruptive technology or any avant-garde pioneering technology, there is a team that's making it happen. And over these past 4 years, we've built a close-knit, a highly skilled, a very driven team, and we have raised capital with incredible BAs who have stuck with us through thick and thin and helped us develop the technology also. We have gathered around the project a phenomenal team of scientific and medical advisors. And yeah, so I think it's a mixture of all these elements, but the human element is really at the heart of it all. And we leap for an idea, but then what makes it happen is the team.
Thank you. Philippe, you talked about, you know, corporate, and then Stéphane said also we have to talk to corporate to engage them in what we're developing. You know, the M&A guys will tell you that if you discuss too close to your future acquirer, you know, you may endanger your value. So how, in your opinion, how do you manage this proximity of dialogue with strategics, and why do they have such an interest in robotic solutions?
Well, just as mentioned, Stéphane, I think we are digitalizing the physician. And at the end, it changed everything. It changed everything in the operating room, in the cath labs, for instance, for Robocath. And digitalizing the physician gives you data and is providing data, and it changed the world. First, of course, the cath labs use X-rays, and so there are occupational hazards, and so allowing to put away the physician, the healthcare providers from this X-ray zone is very important in the cath labs, and it changed the world for the physician himself. And he can operate and perform his intervention from a few meters away. So this is the first thing that digitalizing the intervention allows. Second thing, digitalizing allows you to enhance the intervention, so have more precision and so on. Second things, I would say another thing is finally digitalizing the physician allow you to duplicate the physician, and he can perform more intervention and be more productive. I mean, what is the physician skilled for? He have when he performs an intervention, he has to put a lead apron on, then wash his hand, put a sterile gun on, sterile gloves on, and then prepare the intervention, many steps that are very long, and he wastes much time doing all those steps at the beginning and at the end of the intervention. So if you can save this time, and if he can keep staying in this operating room between 2 cath labs and switch from a patient to another one, he will be more productive. And I would say even more, if he can switch from a cath lab to another, why not in a few kilometers and take care of vascular emergencies and save patients from hemorrhage shock or a stroke in a remote hospital. This is what allows to digitalize the patient and more again, the cath labs itself. This is a machine which is blind. If you digitalize the patient, the physician, you provide data that will allow you to much improve this cath lab, and you will be able to really improve those machines. One more, digitalizing the physician, there's another point very interesting, is you can, as you have the patient which is already digitalized, you can have an autonomous navigation. It's not science fiction. I mean, today we are working on that, and we can say to the robot, you go here, and the robot does navigate by himself and go at the point where you want to go. And finally, it is a step to a fully autonomous navigation, and why not intervention in the future? We are not going that fast, but I mean, it's not so much a science fiction. And so I think corporate have very well understood that this is the future of the interventions, and this is the key of the future of the world market of those cath labs and the operating room. So happy to emphasize what already said Stéphane finally.
So if we go back to you, Stéphane, you talked about scale up. Scale up means money. Money means raising money. If you have to pick today for your current job, would you pick money in Europe? Would you pick money in US? Would you go private? Would you go public?
Yeah, thank you. But maybe I come back, if you want, on your question to Philippe. I'm really not concerned with those relationships, those intimate relationships between a startup and a large company. I truly believe it works. You know, in all my stories, I did it. And yes, you take the risk that they could go away. And you think they may create a wrong value for your company? I don't think so. Big companies are lazy. So if you make their job, you make it simple, you build the trust, the confidence, everything, they go for it. You know, in my story, the last one was, they were very happy. We changed the product according to their needs. It was a prototype. We changed everything, you know, listen to them again and change everything. And then after that, they said, that's what we want. So, Steph, we are not going to do a partnership. We are going to buy you. What price? Oh, that's easy. We will find a solution. Price is not an issue when you have this big, intimate, close relationship. But again, that's for startups, early stage. If you want to make money, easy and quick, you go in robotics, really, truly. I still have a few of them. But
so tell us about scale up.
Yeah, now scale up. This is a different story, of course. So it's difficult for sure. And again, if you go to close relationship with strategics, the business model really it's not yours. It's the business model of the strategics. So this is different. But now you are really in a standalone model. This is the big dream, of course. You want to build a huge company, create value. That's what I'm doing now. So yes, there are many barriers. This is truly difficult. The first one is, as you said, finding the money. We need a lot of money for this, for sure. It has to be a US story to be successful in surgical robotics in a standalone company. No way, you cannot stay in Europe. You have to go to the US. US is super expensive. So this is why we have this financing plan of 100 million, but that's not enough. You know, we will need a lot of money. So if you can do it, that makes sense. But yes, it's huge amount of money. So can we find this money in Europe? Probably difficult. So to go in the US, find money in the US also. I truly believe, unfortunately, that Euronext is not ready for surgical robotics. I don't understand why, honestly, but I think they should pay more attention to this field. It's just crazy. but anyway, today, yes, to answer your question, I think it makes more sense to go to NASDAQ. I think that's our target for the time being, because again, more money and the valuation represents really the reality. All those companies we discussed previously, like Alvarez has been, I don't know if people know, but was acquired for what, 3.5 billion plus earn-out and so on. Mazor, 1.6 billion. Mako Surgical was the first to fire the field with 1.6 billion. Corindus, what was the price of Corindus?
1.1.
1.1 million, and you told me the product was not very, very good. So that's just crazy valuation. So it is really worth it. It is really worth it. But I agree with Jeff. For scale-up, first you need a good product. That's basics, and a good product and a good strategy, ready for this scale-up. You need to think to all the details. I agree with you on the iterations, the intimate relationship with the users is key for sure. So that's really number one. That's why in eCential Robotics, we have this product and this strategy with 3 pillars: open, unified, multi-apps. Open because I don't believe, unified first, because I believe the future of robotics is imaging, navigation, robotics, and so on, all in one device. It's the iPhone. I really think it's key. And number two, I don't think that those devices, you can have a unified platform from Stryker, from J&J, from Zimmer, in the same hospital with different surgeons, using all different implants. So it has to be an open platform. Sorry, it will be the winner. So it took many years for us to go in this direction, because today it's not the market. The market said, no. What works, and that's also for the market access, is bundling. You bundle implants with robots, and it works. Yes, correct. But again, this cannot survive in the long term. So open will win. And multi-app is key, because, when the hospital makes an investment, he needs a product, it's a $1 million product. They cannot use it for only one indication. They need it for multiple indications. The OR will be used for multiple surgeries on the Monday, another surgery on the Tuesday, and so on. So they need, of course, to amortize their investment on multi-apps. And so this was the strategy, but this was also the product, and we worked a lot. It's 10 years of work to reach this level of product quality to be ready for the scale-up. And then, of course, there are many barriers those days. We all know that CE marking is becoming awful. It's terrible. The last file we submitted, they tell us, at GMED, they tell us it's 1 year to give you a stamp. 1 year? We have a file which is finished. The product is finished. And just to review, they say 1 year. My God, in 1 year we can do 2 iterations, So we have to go to the US. It's crazy if you told me that 5 years ago, but now the FDA is more clear, faster, easier than the CE. It's crazy. So, okay, we go to the US. And the rest is standard, of course. For scale-up, you need a strong IP. We have more than 80 patents and so on and so on. You need to be strong to have strong muscles.
Thank you, Stéphane. Maybe we have questions for the audience right now? Or it's still too early and coffee's not yet in the brain. So let me ask one question to you, Jeff. One question here. All right, so I'm reading here. When talking robotic, what weight do you put on data gathering versus non-data technology? I guess that question lies to, what's the role of our artificial intelligence and adaptive algorithm in our robotic solution? So who wants to get a stab at it? Go. Yeah.
So the point about data and robotics is obviously a very hot topic. And that's because in most ORs, if you have a robot there, that is the largest piece of hardware in that OR. And so you can gather an incredible amount of data. So what do you do with that data, I think is the important point. It's about making sure that it is actionable, that the data that you're collecting is meaningful for not only the surgeon, but also the hardware that's collecting it, so that you can do things that make the procedure go faster or more smooth, or help with OR turnover time. There's a variety of things where if you look at building the data and pipeline and the hardware together and make sure that they're unified, you'll be able to create great value. And I think that's one of the things that has been missed, because we've talked about data, but a lot of these a lot of this data that has been collected is based on hardware systems that have already been developed. And so there's a discontinuity between those two. Now, the next generation of systems that's coming out, there's a lot of unification between those two things. And so I think that's where it gets very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Maybe a comment for myself on Theraclion. As therapeutic solution, data is absolutely king. And when you realize it, it's maybe a bit too late, but the ability to realize that a learning algorithm is better performing than 3 ultrasound PhD with 20 years of education is actually stunning. And when we take that into consideration in our solution design, it's actually great to see that it creates value in terms of IP protection, in terms of learning. And there's little chance, once you've built that pile of 3 years of data and gigabytes of gigabytes, that anyone can catch up with you. And then your business model totally changes in terms of you're not selling CapEx, you're not selling a consumable, you're selling a solution. And I think in France we're very well established because there's a wealth of AI consultant offices to help us in our product design and make things just not only better, but much faster, just like any pharma for a clinical trial. There's no good brain to be able to capture all the parameters of our sophisticated solution. We're convinced that this is the right thing to move. Any comments?
No, I can only agree with what you said and take it the other way. If there is no robotics and digital surgery in the OR, how do you collect those data efficiently? So it's a must-have. It's not a nice-to-have. Robotics is a must-have.
I would add one thing is that when you're working on a disruptive technology, of course, you're creating a new database of data because you're acquiring knowledge that couldn't have been acquired until before you started. For example, a microrobot decreases the scale. We don't have information that is live, that is anatomically precise of the brain. And so sending a microrobot in the brain actually helps us understand the brain better, map the brain better, understand the pathologies a lot better. So the new data that is created with a disruptive technology is of enormous value and can really help capitalize for the entire industry.
Thank you, Joana. Philippe?
Well, I think I already told you that it is key to the future of the cath labs and of the operating rooms. The data collected are really important for the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for navigation, autonomous navigation, and so on, for instance, for Robocath.
Maybe one last question on myself to you, Jeff. Fred Moll, the founder of Intuitive and Auris, had like 700 million of treasury to build and scale up his business. With all our dreams, I think all together here, we dream to have that money for all of us to share. So when you don't have that much money, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Auris, in its very early days, didn't have that much money. We started with a $500,000 check, and we had to build a robotic system to demonstrate cataract surgery in under a year. And there's just no way that you can do that. So it's about creating or solving your problem creatively. So sit down, understand your team, understand your constraints, and figure out what is the right problem to solve. In that case, it was how do we build that system with 4 people, very little capital, and be able to show that this system had capability. And so we went and bought 2 off-the-shelf robots, actually, and then re-engineered them to do cataract surgery. And that aligned with our narrative and helped start to bring money in. And so the point of that story, I think, is figure out what are the right problems to solve. There are always so many things that need to be done in a startup. It's a crisis of prioritization. Focus on the things that matter, understand your constraints, and know when to say enough is enough. We need to make this decision and move on, because if you try to perfect things and solve it perfectly, you won't get there. Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you for your attention here. I hope we have created enthusiasm for people to actually start their own robotic adventure. And also we hope that we can create also enthusiasm for investors to join us, because robotics never fail. And because AI is going to help us transforming faster and better. Maybe not to replace mankind, but actually to be a good right or left hand for physicians throughout the world. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a really strong start.